She's got it written down, she's gonna order that.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
That's what it is.
It's a very interesting study.
It's fascinating.
I enjoy it, but I think some other people might get bored with it because you do have to talk about the Greek manuscripts.
It's
And,
always,
It's a
always.
little
Why would
Yeah.
I look
In
at
the
her
front
paper?
where,
She's got half the
you
answer.
know, he's going over the terms and what you, how they do it and variants and all that stuff, and now there's looking at issues.
Well, I got from last week's too, 'cause we're gonna go over that, and then we're gonna go to 7 and 8. I know we're on 7 and 8.
Oh, here's that one I got. I didn't bring the other two because that would have been really heavy.
What you got there?
I ordered the Bible is from God, a sampling of proofs.
It's good.
And I got my other two. I got the anvil ones today too. They all came together, so it was like
Oh, good.
Christmas.
Good.
Where?
Yeah, the Anvil Rings was really good. I enjoyed going through that.
Anvil Rings 1 and 2. And
Yeah,
we
she
went
ordered
through, we went through Anvil Rings 2 and then went back and read them.
Yeah, I got those two.
Yeah. We
Isn't
talked
it
about that on
wonderful when
Saturday.
you can move your body the way it's supposed to?
Have you read Transform?
It's just
Yeah.
2 years
Oh,
of
no.
therapy and 3
Okay,
hours.
check that one out.
So there's bones.
Also
Okay, so water was
Apologetics
boiled
Press.
as well.
And it went
Also
here.
Apologetics Press.
And Convicted is another good one.
Convicted is another good one, yes, yes.
Did you get your paper turned in
Bless you.
for the doctor?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want,
I hope I got it filled out right.
Did you say you gave me one? I did. I have.
but you know, if you look at them, a lot of them are the same. Granted, sometimes there's some nuances in there, but was that one a little different?
No. I put Bill that,
Okay.
the really short guy.
Oh, the really short
That's
guy.
funny because I was totally gonna go there
Yeah.
because I was like, I'm gonna beat my dad to the dad joke,
It's funny.
but then he just beat me to it.
I did.
totally
That one time didn't
when
even-
you asked, I was there.
That one time, that did not cross my mind. One time. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Can you do the closing prayer tonight?
You're helping me tonight.
Yeah, you? Okay. Thank you. Well, maybe nobody else heard. I thought maybe he was saying that there was a difference in the King James. I wondered what they called them.
I have the King James and the American Standard.
You should have all 15 different translations under there. Right?
Dollar General off,
And Mr. Nick,
the Quimber
you look tired.
had that one.
A little sleepy.
The Dollar General here in
Either
Hazel Park
need
didn't
maps
carry
or
it.
times out, can't figure out which one.
I need both.
Y'all are going to be sleeping. I'm going to be the one.
I know.
Nobody can see you guys. If anybody falls asleep, I'm warning you, I will turn the camera around. It is movable, and I will show the world.
In church, was she telling me her bathroom?
That should be motivation to keep everybody awake right there.
That ain't gonna
You
bother
just
me.
step down off the podium, you walk over and you tap him on the shoulder. Isn't that right, brother?
Well, that'll work too, but this way, this will be live on the
Yeah, and
internet.
everybody
And then we can make that the thumbnail for the class. And then this shared on Facebook and all that good
I
stuff.
just noticed some Spiegel Bros aren't here.
All right. Let's hit class quickly because it's National.
It's hot dog day. It is hot dog day. I saw Hazel Park says ketchup or mustard, and I wanted to put underneath there, why not mayo?
Barbecue sauce.
Barbecue sauce is good. Has anybody in here ever put mayonnaise on their hot dog?
Chick-fil-A sauce.
Chick-fil-A
Chick-fil-A
sauce.
sauce is the
I
best.
like mayo.
And by
on
the
hot
way, the
dog.
chicken
Yeah.
places need to, the burger places need to stop making fun of Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A sauce makes burgers better too, so they better watch out.
Yeah, when we were in the forest, we had Chick-fil-A sauce, and we were like
See, I like,
hamburgers and hot dogs. Yeah.
I like fried
Sausages.
hot dogs,
Okay.
I put them on a sandwich, cut two loaves of them on a
Okay.
sandwich, and then I put my mustard, onions, and
Okay.
mayonnaise.
Why don't you just have bologna? It's the same thing.
Hot dog.
That, with ketchup? Okay.
It doesn't taste the same.
What's that, John?
It's the same. It's made out of the same hot.
Are you a mustard only guy? Are you
Onion,
mustard, onion, all that stuff? Yeah.
Chili dog. Chili dog.
Mustard and relish.
Yeah.
See, I can take the relish or I can leave the relish.
Hey, Addison. Addison, when you're in Chicago and you order a Chicago dog, do they put mustard on there?
No.
I can't remember. I mean, I know it comes with all the
Don't they
other.
just put sauerkraut?
No, they put pickle.
Depends on how you order it.
Sauerkraut's New York.
Sauerkraut's New York.
Chicago, I don't.
They run it through the garden. So there's like tomato, pickle.
A normal
Onion.
Chicago dog is one with coleslaw.
Yeah. I thought that.
Go order a Matt and Moe's after class. They're open tonight. Go over there, get a Chicago dog, and tell. Stop. Go to Matt and Moe's and say you want a Chicago dog and run it through the garden, and let's see if it has coleslaw on it. You can report back next week.
One of those.
Chicago hot dog. Served in
We're arguing over hot
bun
dogs then.
and topped with mustard, fresh tomatoes, onions, sport peppers, bright green relish, dill pickles, and celery salt.
They call it dragging it through the garden.
So they don't put ketchup on it.
They don't put ketchup.
I'm still not sure why you're not allowed to put ketchup on a hot dog. I need to look up the history on that. Did you hear about that? There was that. Yeah, well, don't do that at Comerica Park when that one guy's working. I think they fired him over it because he was yelling at the customers. They were wanting ketchup, and he kept arguing with them.
If I'm eating it, I can
You should
put
get
whatever
it.
I want on it.
Yeah, but then he
Same thing
would.
with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
But then-
my kids keep telling me I make wrong.
But then you know what he would say? He would say this isn't Burger King, and you can't have it your way.
Spots. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich last night. She said, "You put too much."
I don't know. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're able to chat, do you like ketchup, mustard, or mayo on your hot dog? Or am I the only weird one that likes mustard? Cheese?
Mustard and mayonnaise.
That's good. That would be all right.
I like those dressing on
Okay, that's the same thing as you might as well just go a step further. and-
Tartar sauce on
Which
burger.
is literally mayonnaise and
And
mustard.
mustard, that's.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am pretty sure there is a right and a wrong way to make peanut butter and jelly
It's
sandwiches.
not!
Yes.
There is.
I heard you say-
Okay,
Spot
If you're watching this on YouTube, is there a right or wrong way?
Spot says
to the-
you put a quarter of a jar on one slice of peanut butter, you put a quarter of a jar on the other slice of bread of peanut butter, and then you put a third of a jar of jelly. You put them
I
together.
don't know. That's a lot of peanut butter. I should. How much bread? It's just 2 slices. He's just talking about a full jar of peanut butter.
A quarter of a loaf?
It's like,
No, that's a single sandwich.
okay.
My dog.
Yeah, I think we have some YouTube comments. We got controversy. What, Edison?
Sean says hi.
Hi, Sean. What do you put on your peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Valina says hi.
Hi, Valina.
And Sean says ketchup and mustard.
Ketchup and mustard. But some people would yell at you about the ketchup part of it. I don't know why. I need to research that. I did too, yeah. And
Mayonnaise myself.
Bill, on your hot dog?
Put nothing on it.
Oh, no,
Taste
not
the
a
hot
hot dog, but I'm not supposed to have ketchup.
souls.
Oh, okay.
I've had mustard,
We love you
mustard,
still.
relish.
So, Jody,
Hot sauce.
that'd be good too.
Oh, yeah, I-
And Jody's parents might be watching tonight too. So if you're watching Bill and Levon, sorry about this going on. All right.
yeah.
Now with the
I need the gavel. I need the gavel, but I would knock the camera off. All right. So we're in Acts. We're in the book of Acts. Just kidding. Just kidding. If you've never been following along, we're in.
Say, that's not what kind of homework you gave.
Right. Well, I was just mentioning I'm not feeling well, so I could be off tonight. I don't know. Yeah. But I might be asking the wrong questions. Anyway,
We're in
We're-
the second book of Luke.
the second book of Luke. I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist. Yes, Edison.
Right, 07.
He's not heard of the right or wrong way. So, apparently there's a Studio C sketch on how to do that. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I've seen it, but I have to refresh my memory.
Oh, I am positive you have seen that one.
To who?
March.
Marge is watching, or hi Marge. Yeah, I do know she follows along because I give her questions every week. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Do you have any music on?
No, because I've not been doing that conference call thing. Everybody that would use the conference calls here currently. So we might do that again in the fall.
No.
Later in the fall. No, well, okay, we'll see. We'll see. Hey, who's running things here? Anyway, we're in the book of Job. Is that right?
Steve Job, huh?
See,
No.
the book of Job.
Not in the book of
J.O.B..
Steve.
Job.
No. No.
All right, what chapter are we in the book of Job? 7 and 8. All right, so I did the right homework. All right,
Well,
David, I hope you did.
I know we're gonna review
I'm kind of
5
flighty
and 6,
tonight.
right? Just a little
for like
review on it?
20 seconds. But what do we do for tradition? What do we do tradition?
Say
What do we?
we're happy for.
All right, so we're going to start on this side since we started on that side last week. You guys happy for anything?
What do you have?
Thankful, glad to be here.
Oh, Nick's here.
Car.
Your tire? Yeah. Did you get that fixed yet, or are they looking at it?
Yeah, I got the
Yeah,
tire replaced.
got it. All right. How are the other tires? Are they doing okay?
I need to get another one, but
Wait, on your new car?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, he had some little threads showing through.
Yeah,
or
on
something.
the sidewall.
Yeah.
so they want to replace another tire and then take one of the good ones, put it on the back, so that way the 2 new tires can go in front. And then they want to redo the brakes on all 4.
And-
Rotate
Well, you get a
the
used
tires.
car. There's going to be it's little things like that, but you got warranty, right?
Yeah, that's I have to wait for the warranty company to say if they're going to cover it or not.
They should.
Gotcha.
But I
Yeah.
have to wait for it.
Yeah. It's a waiting game now. All right. Anybody else over there in that corner?
I'm happy they got a car, and we're getting rid of one of ours.
Gonna save some money?
We'll save
We're gonna make some money off of
Yeah, yeah. So all of a sudden we're getting ready to have some sort of insurance commercial. And they got a car and I save 15% on my insurance. I don't know.
Probably more like 50.
Disabled? I'm happy my brother's out of surgery and doing well today.
It's good to hear.
A week before his bypass, he had to have another, what do you call it? Carotid artery fixed.
Gotcha. Well, glad to hear he's
I
recuperating.
thank God that I had my phone Monday. They called me. I have a diabetes doctor's appointment on Friday, and they said, you know, we're not at New Center 1. I heard they were having problems because of the rain, flooding, walls or something going on. So that place is closed. It's still on West Grand Boulevard, but I gotta go to the hospital, Henry Ford Hospital, on Friday. 17th floor, 13th floor, I think that's bad luck. Maybe I'm
Oh, no,
imagining
that's my
things.
lucky number.
13th floor,
We're in good hands.
K13.
You'll have to go to the 14th floor and walk down the flight.
Oh, okay.
Well, you can be
12th
thankful.
floor, lock up?
You-
No.
That's how most buildings work.
I'd be lucky if I find the elevator and get on the elevator and go up.
Well, thankful that they can see you.
Stuff is when you hook up with someone in the program.
All right. Anybody else?
Go ahead.
I'm thankful it was my 35th anniversary at work, and they gave me a little bonus, so
Oh,
even though
nice.
I'm off of work, I can still pay my bills, thank you, God.
That's good. Yeah, that's great news.
I'm thankful she went to the doctor the other day, and the doctor put her in a foot shoe for her. She might have a broken foot.
I'm glad you finished that sentence there for a second. I thought she had a foot
She would,
So you're thankful she went to the doctor,
Transplant.
I'm thankful she has a broken foot.
if she has a broken foot, I'm thankful for it.
Because she probably broke it kicking you.
We're so-
As I said, earlier I said,
Actually, I was just walking.
she stood up when I said shut up.
we have lots of fun, don't we? We do.
I'll be a board certified doctor and start school in August for that. So
Cool, cool, yeah.
I can't diagnose
Yeah.
or treat, but I can educate.
Cool, cool.
I am thankful that my appendix is still in place and that Laura didn't snitch on me.
Oh, boy.
I think it's your
told you,
gallbladder.
I wasn't gonna tell, but I didn't know, but anybody else in there was probably gonna tell on you.
I think it's your gallbladder.
And then I saw you were
I think
glad.
it might be diverticulitis. I think I caused myself to have that because I have a FODMAP sensitivity and I didn't realize it before.
Then I saw that you were glad that your mother didn't know, but now I'm assuming your mother knows because she's sitting across the table from
I
you.
know the part where I really did think that my appendix was going to burst, but
Well, maybe in about 35, 40 minutes, you guys can hash this over. Have your own personal, private meeting. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, we're gonna have a meeting.
Yeah.
And I just wanna say, I didn't tell.
I'm biting my tongue and
I get it.
staying calm.
I get it.
My
I
mouth
get it.
quiet,
But when we
because
get
I
out
do
of
have
here-
Facebook and I see these.
Is she going to give you a ride home and you're going to have a conversation with her?
She's gonna come to my house, so.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to this. We're going to move on to this table over here.
Bye, Vera.
You guys happy about anything?
I'm thankful we didn't have to get a new tire. They just fixed it and they said it was free.
So Nick, I'm really tired about talking about tires. But anyway, that's
Just how we bought the tire at Bell Tire. That's why they fixed it for free.
yeah. So,
But the toe. that was
but
not
anyway,
free.
but at least we didn't have to buy a new tire.
Yeah.
So. Chloe?
I'm thankful that my friend Xander's feeling better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. You've been able to
Just a
play
couple
with them.
nights ago, he was in the ER thinking that they got.
Yeah. Yeah. Addison, we kind of jumped over you, but yeah, just thankful for the tire. Just thankful that yesterday's over. Not that I want to rush through any day, but because then you could wish you could. Yeah, yeah,
I'm thankful for Apologetics Press.
yeah. They got a lot of good material out there.
I'm taking full advantage of them.
Hey, I got a new Mini Cooper today.
What?
I got a new Mini Cooper today. It's only about that big and about that tall, but we got a new one. We had to get a new key fob, so we went out to the. If you ever need a dealership, I know you work for Carvana, but there is a mini dealership over on Telegraph in Southfield.
I'm also thankful for all the literature that my dad just sent us.
Yeah, from World Video Bible School. Yeah, that's a lot of. Send us an external hard drive with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lessons. Yeah.
Of information.
We should probably get
Same
going.
ones that they ship all over the world?
Maybe, yeah. So we're going to get into the book of Job. I was just kind of thinking this over, and these couple of chapters we're going to be in tonight. There's some challenges, and I don't know if anybody else has been challenged with this particular book, but this is a challenging book because some things are true, right? We know that some things are true. Some things are not true, well, because they're just not from inspired people, not inspired men of God. And then some things are true, but they're used in the wrong way. And so that's really challenging as to keep just keep that in mind when you're going through this. That can be pretty challenging.
Why are you taking pictures?
Try to turn the phone off. So Harriet's been waiting for a little bit of a review. Here we go. Real quick, chapter 5, Eliphaz. Who was Eliphaz?
Friend.
Okay, he was one of the friends of Job, so-called friend. I do think that he was a friend. So we were talking about this earlier this afternoon. Here's the reason why I think he was a true friend. Because if I had somebody that said that they were a friend and they were treating me the way Eliphaz and the other friends were treating me, I would have kicked them out a long time ago. So at least he was cordial enough to listen to them. But anyway, Eliphaz, he continued his speech in chapter 5, and essentially he says that Job's being disciplined by God because of some sin or some sins in Job's life. Chapter 6, Job begins his retort, his speech to his friends, kind of directed at what things that Eliphaz says. And essentially, he says, I have the right to complain. And because life is miserable, he says. One person said that the key thought from chapter 6 is found in verse number 27. And chapter 6, verse 27 says, yes, you overwhelm the fatherless and you undermine your friend. And they went on to say that the idea here is to accuse one's comforters, supposedly, gets you nowhere. And I think we really see that tonight as we get into these couple of chapters. Maybe we've talked about this in the past. Maybe Job's friends just should have never said anything in the first place. But let me also humbly submit to you that maybe Job shouldn't have responded either. Maybe everybody should have just sat there and just been quiet. And because his response isn't very nice sometimes. And I think sometimes when we misuse words, doesn't that kind of make things worse? Right? I mean, you have supposed friends or whatever, and they say maybe the wrong things, and then doesn't that kind of push people into corners? And I think that maybe sometimes Job's response is because maybe they're pushing him into a corner. And anyway, so this week we're going to be in chapter 7 and 8. We're going to see Job continuing his speech. If there were two words that I could use to describe these two chapters, it would be this. You're going to see them on the screen. Chapter 7, Job feels hopeless. He just feels hopeless. And then in chapter 8, his friend deals with him harshly, or harsh. Man.
That's very appropriate for
Bildad, the name of his friend, he was a jerk. He was just, if there was one good thing from Bildad was his name. You can make fun of his name, right? And we'll do that when we get there, John. I'll save that for you, or Vera, whoever jumps on that first, you can have it. All right. But one thing that we do see is even though Job feels hopeless and he's struggling with some things, he's miserable, right? He doesn't lose something, and he questions God throughout all this. He doesn't lose something. What did he hold on to? He held on to his integrity. And didn't we say that was going to be the word for the week? Is that why the Spiegel girls aren't here tonight? So Chloe, it's all on you. What is integrity? Maybe somebody will help you. That's part of your AHG motto, pledge.
Do the right thing and no one's watching.
Okay. And maybe a little bit more than that, maybe holding on to your moral principles, right? So he was going to hold on to his morality. And we even see, right, good people. Bad things happen to good people. And sometimes we have questions, and sometimes we ask. Job was still faithful, even though he had questions. And then chapter 8, another friend speaks up. I already named him, Bilbo. No. No, it wasn't Bilbo. But he used some harsh words, doesn't he? Bildad Baggins. He uses words like hypocrite, and the things that he says there,
about it, the sons, that.
And he talks about how God's dealings with Job, and
God's asleep.
yeah, we'll get there. Trust me, we'll get there. So chapter 7.
Like this guy.
Yeah, I struggled studying through that. Anyway, let's read together chapter 7, and then we'll go back and answer the questions, and then we'll read chapter 8. So if you have your Bibles open, Job chapter 7, verse number 1 says, "Is there not a time of hard service for man on earth? Are not his days also like the days of a hired man? Like a servant who earnestly desires the shade, and like a hired man who eagerly looks for his wages. So I have been allotted months of futility, and wearisome nights have been appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise and the nights be ended? For I have had my fill, all tossing till dawn. My flesh is caked with worms and dust. My skin is cracked and breaks out afresh. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle and are spent without hope. Oh, remember that my life is a breath. My eye will never again see good. The eye of him who sees me will see me no more. While your eyes are upon me, I shall no longer be, and the cloud disappears and vanishes away. So he who goes down to the grave does not come up. He shall never return to his house. nor shall his place know him any more. Therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or a sea serpent that you set a guard over me? When I say, my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that my soul chooses strangling and death rather than my body. I loathe my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone, for my days are but a breath. What is man that you should exalt him, that you should set your heart on him, that you should visit him every morning and test him every moment? How long? Will you not look away from me and let me alone till I swallow my saliva? Have I sinned? What have I done to you, O watcher of men? Why have you set me as your target, so that I am a burden to myself? Why then do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I will lie down in the dust, and you will seek me diligently, but I will no longer be. All right, so let's answer the questions. Kind of like last week, we'll just quickly answer the questions, and then we'll go back and we'll read Job chapter 8, answer those questions, and then we'll go back and have a little bit of a discussion. We do have a lot more questions this week, don't we?
Thanks, John.
We have a lot of questions for next week, too. Thanks. He asked for more, so. All right, so question number one. How does it still doesn't take very long to answer them, unless you're looking through 100 different translations for the right answer.
You like switch fonts, because I feel like it's the same amount of questions.
No, I did. I decreased the amount of space between them each. But anyway, how does Job describe his suffering, verses 1 through 5? I mean, this answer could be short. This answer could be really long. Comfortless. Okay.
I listed it all out when I said basically no rest or relief and unending, but I did list it all out too.
Okay. All right.
So like a servant who desires shade, hired
That's-
man who
that's
looks
what I
for his
put,
wages,
servant of man and hired men.
Okay.
wearisome nights of tossing till dawn, flesh caked with worms and dust, skin cracked and breaks.
So it's a lot of physical anguish. A lot of physical anguish. Did he have mental anguish as well on top of all that? He sure did. Yeah. All right. Question number 2 is a fill in the blank. Somebody would like to take that.
Wind/breath.
Would somebody like
My
to?
days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and are spent without hope. Oh, remember that my life is a
Wind/breath.
I will never again see good.
All right. So if you had breath, that is correct. If you had wind,
That's correct.
well, depends on who's teaching class. And then
I would say it's wrong.
you would say it's wrong. We should take this. We should take a vote. Just kidding. I don't want to go there. If you had wind, that's all right. You're using the King James. That's okay. All right. Question number 3. What do clouds do?
Disappear and vanish away.
All right. What verse was that from?
9.
All right. Verse number 9. Question 4. What do those that go down to the grave not do?
Come on. Also verse 9.
All right. 9 and anybody have anything extra?
9 and verse 10.
Yeah, 9 and 10. All right, so they never return to their house, Job says, and nor shall his place know him anymore. It's funny, I'm having a hard time reading my own writing, but that's okay. So was Google the other day. Question number 5, what does Job say he would not restrain? Right.
Refrain my mouth.
All right, and what was he going to speak?
I will speak in anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul, and I will not restrain my mouth.
Yeah, so he was just going to let him have it. If you're going to let me have it, I'm just going to, at least he was polite and let him speak the whole speech, and then he talked with them. Didn't cut him off. Question number 6, what creature does Job mention in this chapter from the New King James Version? Caesar.
Leviathan.
Well, actually, I looked it up, and that's a different word from Job chapter 4. So it would be some sort of sea monster. We're not sure what it is. King James uses the word whale, but we don't know if it was a whale.
Some commentaries, that's what I was doing again.
Yeah.
They interchange it there.
Yeah, some do refer to say as he was probably thinking of maybe some sort of
King
leviathan
James
creature.
again also says
Whale, and but we don't know if it was a whale. Nessie. Could have been. Question 7, how did Job view his life? Yeah, that was verse 12. He loathed his life. What does it mean to loathe something?
Hate.
To hate. Yeah, extreme hate. All right, question number 8 again is a fill in the blank. Somebody read the whole thing for us and fill in the blanks as you're reading it.
What is man that you should exalt him, that you should set your heart on him, that you should visit him every morning and test him every moment?
All right, thank you. Very good. Question number 9. Job asked God if he would let him alone so that he could do what?
Swallow my spittle.
Man. In what verse was that found?
19.
All right, very good. And I like how John interjected that, right? So now we're all putting the verse references in there. That's good. Thank you, John. Question 10. What does Job affirm in verses 20 and 21?
He has sinned.
Okay. Okay.
Transgressed iniquity.
Yeah. So there's some, we'll discuss, well, maybe I should just mention this here. I really didn't like the way the New King James worded it because they make it a question. They form it as a question, but if you research it a little bit more, the literal translation is more of what the King James Version has. It's a declarative statement. I couldn't even say that word right. He declares, I have sinned. So he's acknowledging that he had sinned. Right? What?
ESV has it as a question too, so
Okay.
that was how I put it.
Okay. All right. And he also recognized something else about God, doesn't he, here? Right. He affirms this about, what's that?
God is like the judge.
Okay, he's
Hold
the
on, my preserver.
preserver, okay. Yep, the King James uses the word preserver. New King James says he's a watcher of men. And so here we have, in essence, what Job is doing is he is holding out hope, right? He's questioning, but he's observing that God does watch over us. He does preserve people. So there is a glimmer of hope there at the end of Job chapter 7. All right, so this was just an oddball question. I don't know why I came up with this question. Question 11. How many questions did Job ask in this chapter? So,
I put 4 or 5.
okay, you have 4 or 5.
I put 10.
You have 9. You have 9.
I was trying to
Whoa.
count.
Well, Chloe, what do you have? 11.
Thank you, Chloe, that's the right answer.
Anybody else have 11? Okay, I came up with 11 as well. Okay, I will. I wrote this down. Now, but hold on a second. King James has it different. Because the King James actually puts questions in other places, but it still turns out to be 11 questions, which is mind-boggling to me. But anyway, the New King James has 2 questions in verse 1. There's 1 question in verse 4. There's 1 question in verse 12. There's 1 question in verse 18. So there's
17
7.
has 2.
Depends on the translation.
Right.
There's 2 questions in verse 19, and there's 3 questions in verse 20, and then 1 in verse 21.
All I know is that
So-
hurt my head trying to see that. So I was like, I guessed.
You guessed. So I'll tell you, originally I counted 10, but then when I broke it down, I went back and I counted, and then I came up with 11.
One
So
was like, oh, sorry.
And if you combine the 2, it's 14.
we won't go. Yes. Yeah. Question marks. Because a lot of them are run-on sentences, run-on kind of questions. So it might depend on how you view the question, but I came up with 11. John came up with 11. I think several other people. Glenn came up with the majority.
My thing is there were a whole lot of run-on sentences.
There were.
And
So
grammatically, I was thinking, no. My English teacher would have failed you on it because you were doing so much.
good.
So there were several.
Super sick.
she's just explaining. I was thinking the same thing. That's why it was a fun question. It was just.
Like, if you really want to break it down, there's probably like 25.
Probably
so.
twice as many, at least twice as many. But
I read it.
I just
tally marks.
I just looked at the question marks. That's how I did it. Chloe, you got a question?
And it's also fun because it's on question 11.
Question 11. Answer was 11.
I didn't even notice
That was totally not planned.
Oh, sure.
Trust me on that. A lot of times I'll write I'll write things out and then I'll put the number of the in it. All right. we're ready to read chapter 8 and then answer these.
You're using a King James.
Oh, that's why.
You're using the non-authorized version in this
I
class.
in verse 19, there's one.
He didn't hear me.
King James.
It's the non-authorized.
Yeah.
But there was 2 questions in one of the other ones that.
Yeah.
Why is it
All right.
non-authorized?
Chapter 8, Job chapter 8, we're going to read through here, and then we're going to answer these questions.
Authorized by the teacher, therefore it's unauthorized.
That's right. That's very good. You're learning.
I think Brian has a difference.
Well, that's
No, that was a good answer. That was a good answer. We're going to get in Job 8, verse 1. Then Bildad, not to be confused with Bilbo. He's a different guy. Bilbo was much nicer, I'm assuming. Bildad the Shuhite answered and said, "How long will you speak these things, and the words of your mouth be like a strong wind? Does God subvert judgment, or does the Almighty pervert justice? If your sons have sinned against him, he has cast them away for their transgression. If you would earnestly seek God and make your supplication to the Almighty, if you were pure and upright, surely now he would awake for you and prosper your rightful dwelling place. Though your beginning was small, yet your latter end would increase abundantly. For inquire, please, of the former age, and consider the things discovered by their fathers. For we were born yesterday and know nothing, because our days on earth are a shadow. Will they not teach you and tell you and utter words from their heart? Can the papyrus grow up without a marsh? Can the reeds flourish without water? While it is yet green and not cut down, it withers before any other plant. So are the paths of all who forget God, and the hope of the hypocrite shall perish, whose confidence shall be cut off, and whose trust is a spider's web. He leans on his house, but he does not stand. He holds it fast, but it does not endure. He grows green in the sun, and his branches spread out in his garden. His roots wrap around the rock heap and look for a place in the stones. If he is destroyed from his place, then it will deny him, saying, I have not seen you. Behold, this is the joy of his way, and out of the earth others will grow. Behold, God will not cast away the blameless, nor will he uphold the evildoers. He will yet fill your mouth with laughing and your lips with rejoicing. Those who hate you will be clothed with shame, and the dwelling place of the wicked will come to nothing. All right, so question number 1, Job 8 and verse 1 is fill in the blank. And Vera, I'll call on you.
Yes. Then Bildad, the really short guy, answered and said.
The really short guy being Shuhite. All right, very good. Anybody get anything different? You shouldn't have, because that was pretty cut and dry. All right, so hopefully everybody flipped their sheet over because it says it's page 1 of 2. Now, Chloe, when she was doing this, was like, oh man, we got questions on the other side. Anyway, question 2. How does Bildad describe the, quote, words of Job? A great wind, a strong wind. All right, what verse is that found?
Verse 2.
All right, excellent. Question 3, what conclusion did Bildad make concerning Job's sons or children, depending on... All right, that they had sinned against who?
God.
Against him, God.
All right, and what did God provide to them because they sinned?
He will have
Or what did he do?
them away as they are trespassers.
All right, so he punished them. All right, and what verse did we find that answer in? All right, very good. What does Bildad say Job should earnestly do? All right, Laura, you put something extra. Make what?
I said, seek God and make your supplication to the Almighty.
All right, excellent. That's exactly what I put. And what verse is that found in? All right, verse number 5. If Job was pure and upright, what would God surely do? At least according to Bildad. Yeah. All right. Awake for him.
And make a habitation of thy righteous purpose.
All right.
Okay, I'm kind of confused why somebody would say that. Like, it's not like God sleeps.
All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Question 6. How does he view life, Bildad?
As a shadow?
Okay. Shadow.
For we are but of yesterday.
All right. So,
But like a child, no
Okay, like a child knowing nothing? Okay. Days like a shadow. So if you think about a shadow, how long do shadows last, really? No, yeah, they're kind of
As soon as
fleeting.
you step out of the sun, they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, I just put they're short. And again, I mean, that's true, right? And we'll talk about this here in a minute. It's true, but not all the things that Bildad said was true. But anyway, question 7, what can grow up without a marsh and what can flourish without water?
Nothing.
Yes.
Nothing.
Bring them
That's what I
down.
have right
Yeah,
there, nothing.
yeah, nothing can, right?
Matter of fact, I put a trick question.
Yeah, it was a trick question.
Nothing.
Papyrus needs a marsh, right? And reeds need water.
I put,
So nothing.
Okay, I'm putting angry face.
If you didn't put nothing, you were wrong.
Angry face. On my paper.
That's awesome, John. Thank you. I'm glad you got that.
And that was verse 11.
I got it too.
So Jody and Chloe were working on it. You got it too. Thank you, Vera. I'm glad. But they were like, "What's the answer? What's in it?" I'm like, "Well, we'll talk about it later." And
Question, can papyrus grow up without a marsh?
nope.
No.
And then the next thing was.
Can the rush,
Nothing can grow without
can the
water.
rush grow without a mire?
Yeah.
Well, but not according to this verse.
Can
Yeah,
the
because-
flag grow without
We're talking
water?
about papyrus and reeds. We're not talking about angry
Yeah,
face.
well, verse 12 kind of explains it a little more, because it says, while it is yet green and not cut down, it withers before any other plant. So it dies off, so it really can't flourish.
So the marsh would be like soil, right? It's got to have some soil. So a plant needs soil, some sort of soil, because soil has the nutrients in it, right? And obviously, to get the nutrients, you got to have water, and so nothing can grow without it. Anyway, let's move on before I get stoned by it. I'm getting some crazy looks from him. All right, question number 8. That was a fun. I had fun with that one. Question 8. What is Bildad accusing Job of being? Verse 13. A hypocrite and
Forgetful of God and a hypocrite.
forgetful of God. Ugh. All right, question number 9. According to Bildad, what will God not do?
Exactly the way you're
He was a perfect man.
All right.
Even when we count the evil doers.
Okay.
blameless, look, that I got from the last.
All right, and he won't uphold the evildoers, verse 20. All right, so let's back up here for just a little bit, highlight a couple things. I'm not going to highlight everything, especially from chapter 8, because I just got frustrated with Bildad. Anyway, chapter 7, verses 1 through 5, he was miserable, right? We've already addressed that. Physically, mentally, we could see that. It's apparent. He was struck, not only did he lose his livelihood, his money, his animals, his servants, his family, but he was also physically struck, right, and with boils. And so it would be apparent from verse number 5 that he continued to break out with these skin wounds. They just kept coming on him. Verse 5 again says, "My flesh is caked with worms and dust." That just sounds miserable. "And then my skin is cracked and breaks out afresh." So like it just keeps breaking out on those, yeah, and just horrible that he had to get that broken pottery to scrape it. Poor guy didn't have hydrocortisone. Poor guy didn't have Benadryl. Poor guy could not go to the, he had no calamine lotion. He couldn't go to the ER to get a shot to help him. No, what's those shots called with the, when people, yes, an EpiPen, no EpiPens to help him. Miserable. Just, Jody?
I wonder if that's why he mentions about swallowing the saliva. Maybe there's sores down his throat. It's really hard.
Well, we'll get to that here in a little bit as well, because I initially maybe thought that also, but we'll get there. All right, verses 6 and 7. He felt like his days were coming to a quick end. Right, we've already talked about that. He just felt like he was at the end of his life. He says it's quicker than a weaver's shuttle. What's a weaver's shuttle? Chloe says, I don't know.
That's the bar.
Okay. Yes, it's the bar. It's kind of like that loom thing that goes back and forth to. Yeah, maybe we kind of miss out on a little bit of that because. Yeah, we don't do it. Anybody in here? Any?
I would like to. I saw him at Baker Creek.
Yes, I was going to say Baker Creek had some weavers deals, and yeah, it was cool to see.
I said that would be fun.
Yeah. All right. So again, we see and we recognize and we understand, that life is short, isn't it? And there's no doubt about it. That even goes along with what's said there in Job 7, verse number 9. He viewed his life as being a cloud, right? Clouds are pretty quick sometimes. And I'm not talking about like the hazy clouds. I'm talking about the Passover clouds that they're like when we were in Missouri, like we'd get one rogue cloud that would go in front of the sun, and we were thankful for it, but it just did not hang around long enough. It just went away. But isn't that similar to kind of the way it's worded in Job 4, verse 14, that life's a vapor, and it's here and then it's gone, right? And we understand from a physical perspective that, some people live to be really, really old. Some people aren't as blessed to have that long of life. But when you look at it in the perspective from God,
For eternity.
I mean, it's very short. That's right.
My days are vanity.
Yeah. And then he says they go down to the grave, they don't come up, they never return to their house, no one in his place will know his name. And I got to thinking there, I was thinking, I don't think Job was talking about the general resurrection, and I'm not even sure of what Job's idea was of the resurrection at the end of times. So I was looking at commentaries. I thought Barnes had an interesting statement, Albert Barnes. He said this. He said, that phrase, shall come up no more and shall no more live on the earth, it would be pressing this too far to adduce, or that is, to use this as an evidence, in other words, as proving that Job did not believe in the doctrine of the resurrection. The connection here requires us to understand him as meaning only that he would not appear again on the earth. And so that's the idea there. The dead go to the grave, and they're not ever going to return to their physical home, are they? Where maybe family and friends are at. And you can...
Somebody who is Satan, and I've read one of his publications, would claim that this proves there is no afterlife.
See, and like he says, you cannot use this one verse as an evidence because there's things that are accurate and there's things that are not accurate, and so that's where you got to look at the entirety of the Bible and the context.
And not only that, but not everything Job is saying here
It's true. Yeah,
it's just what he's feeling.
Yeah, and it's his perception of things. Yeah. Yeah.
Barnes, we may not agree with everything, but
Right.
was a prolific writer. His writings are extremely good.
And right here, I mean, he was spot on with what he said. I mean, because I was like, Job surely is not talking about the resurrection. Yeah. I mean, he was obviously meaning something else, and don't forget, he's got physical and mental anguish going on here. So, yeah. And although all through this chapter, all through chapter 7, Job attributes the bad things that are happening to him to who? To God. He never one time blames the devil, which we got to be careful about that, right? I mean, I look at it, God's the giver of every good and every perfect gift.
We give Satan way too much credit.
Or we blame God way too much.
Yeah, I feel like we say Satan has more power in our lives than what he does, and then we blame God when things are going wrong, and sometimes it's just things that are just happening. Because God has put natural orders, and there may have been some sins that caused it.
There are people that have been Christians, that bad things have happened in their life, and because of those bad things happening, they've become an atheist, or they've pushed God away because they've questioned God. And now that doesn't mean
natural order in life. God put a natural order in life.
It doesn't mean that we don't have problems in this world, because we live in a sinful, fallen world.
We might not realize, Job and each of his friends may not have known who Satan was.
That's a possibility as well, because they did live in a different time. And like I mentioned in the introduction, not one time is the law of Moses or the Torah, Pentateuch, whatever you want to call it, it's not ever mentioned. And the way it's worded makes it seem like he lived in the day and age of Abraham, right? So the patriarchal period. So what all did Job really know? So that's another very good point to keep in mind.
I also like this particular section with Job, because knowing what I know going forward in Job and where he ends up with God in the end, to hear him, I'm going to complain about this, and I'm just going to, I'm going to tell all these truths about how my suffering is. It's comforting to me to know that we can have those times. As humans, we have times where we go through suffering, and maybe we question why things are happening, or maybe we're just so miserable, we say stupid things. And then we always have that knowledge that we can always turn back to God. Like, even though Job is pretty much accusing God of all these horrible things, to come back to a good relationship.
So if you don't know, Job eventually later on says he understands and he recognizes that my Redeemer lives. You know that song that we sing? We get that from the book of Job. But what you're going to quickly see next week in chapter 9, he's saying, this is like a trial, and I have no mediator. But he says, later on, he says, I do have a Redeemer. I do have a mediator. So there's that. It goes back to Vera's, comment there, that it's good that we know what happens later on. And so all through this, we could see those glimmers of hope from Job's perspective. Yes?
Back with the verse that we were talking about before.
Help me out. What verse were we talking about?
One that go down to the grave and never come up.
Okay.
We need to keep in mind that there was no punctuation when this was written either. So, it does all run together with never come up.
Well, so I'm not so sure about the Hebrew. I know the Greek didn't have punctuation. The Hebrew may have. No, I know the Greek Greek didn't. That's why you're talking about run-on sentences, Vera. Paul was notorious for run-ons. You have like 4 or 5 verses or just one big giant sentence. I'm like, I would not get away with that.
But he's fun because then when people because I sometimes use those when I'm speaking. and I'm like, but, Paul was an educated man too.
Yeah, and he used All right. So, well, he said so. People accused him of being weighty in his writings. he was writing terrifying.
Not too eloquent when I'm in public.
Yeah, he wrote terrifying letters. All right, so let's really quick talk about just swallowing his saliva, because that's kind of a strange statement. I believe it was Job wanted it's kind of a figurative language. He wanted God to just let up of punishing him. Just give him a moment to swallow his saliva. So figuratively speaking, almost like give us a minute to catch our breath. Right. Like yesterday was one of those days in our life where we just felt like, can't catch our breath. Every time we were turning around, something new was going on. And he felt like, you've never had one of those days, have you, John? A day or two. He felt like God was targeting him. Right? Like he was just the target of everything, was just focused on him. And then New King James Version, again, he says, question, have I sinned? Literal translation is, I have sinned. And so the idea there is, why are you targeting me? There's other sinners out there in the world. Why is all this wrath and anger directed just at me? And Job's partially right. Haven't we all sinned? Have fallen short of the glory of God? Isn't that so? Romans 3 verse 23. But are we targeted? Does God really target individuals like that?
God respect your persons.
No, and the rain falls on the just and the unjust, right? So
I looked at my notes from last Sunday, didn't you?
just good minds think alike, man.
I preached on mine.
Yeah. All right, so that was chapter 7. And then chapter 8, we get into that discussion of Bildad. Bildad describes Job's words from his mouth like what? Like a great wind, a strong wind. I read that and I shook my head, because talk about being insensitive and an insensitive choice of words. Right, because how did his kids die?
It was a strong wind. I'm like, wait a minute, what is this guy thinking?
Why be you yelling, boy? That's basically how he's worded this,
Yeah, but he worded it in a way that's
wind after his children just
died from a strong wind. The picture of it all.
More sentences down when he says that his son sinned, and that's why they died.
So that's the next point I wanted to bring out from verse 4. So like I have in my notes, I don't know what Bildad was thinking. But he said maybe your children sinned against God, and God punished them. Do you think that would make anybody feel any better?
So what did my kids do?
What's that?
What did my camels do?
Well, they were collateral damage. That's maybe what the military. I don't know. Maybe they were stubborn camels. I don't know. Maybe they needed to be taught.
Is it maybe true that Job's sons may have?
They did, but you know why?
But
because they were humans.
You point that out in that moment.
They did sin because they were human beings, and every human being at the age of accountability and older has sinned. But no, you don't say that. So I don't remember. I don't remember if I said this or not. But chapters 7 and 8 are probably good chapters. Maybe there's a lot of chapters in here of maybe like how not to talk to people, right? You try to put it in a positive light.
To what they're going through.
Yeah. So
I'm not to win friends and people.
the Book of Job, right? That's great.
I love that. That's a great lesson.
And King James Version is public domain, so you just copy and paste the whole book of Job in there. That's great. Thanks, John. When I get my $1 million, I'll split it with you.
I'll split it with you.
Yeah, 50-50. I might have to take a little bit more for cost of printing and all that. Anyway. All right, so chapter 8, verse 6. Bildad is wrong. Is God sleeping? No, he is not sleeping. So for him to say that if Job was seeking God the way he should, right, is kind of what he's implying there. And if Job were really pure and upright, then God would awake for you. A marginal footnote says that God would arise. And it's the idea of him waking up and getting out of bed. And that sounds a whole lot like, John, you got something?
No, go ahead.
It just reminded me a whole lot between the true and the living God and false gods. And that reminded me of Elijah. If you remember Elijah when he took on the prophets of Baal, 1 Kings chapter 18, it says, and so it was at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, cry aloud, for he is a god. So it's a little case G there. He's a little god. Yeah. Either he is meditating or he is busy. And the idea of that word busy, that's what the New King James Version says. The idea of the word busy is he's maybe using the bathroom, or he's on a journey, or perhaps he's sleeping and must be awakened.
See, no, I didn't take it that way. I took it to mean that he would answer his prayers.
Okay, well, but he would wake up and listen to him, yeah. Okay, so is that kind of the idea that you had there?
So I see
Okay.
where you guys are coming from.
Yeah.
So when I was reading, I took it that way too. So then when she said that God's asleep, I was surprised, but then I figured out what verse she was
Yeah. I mean, there's probably,
Maybe because he hadn't gotten an answer right away.
yeah, but the words that he used, there's probably a better way to say it.
What was the verse in 1 King 8?
Verse 27. You're welcome. So like I would never say a person, hey John, your prayers are not being answered. Maybe God will wake up one day when you become sinless and blameless and upright.
Maybe
That's
God
kind
will
of
take heed to you. That's the way that Matthew Henry in his writings,
Yeah.
And either way you take this, if you took it as, him not answering the prayers, the ideal that you can only have, God will only hear you when you're pure and not sinning is wrong anyway. So either way you take it, it's a wrong statement.
Yeah.
God hears us no matter what our state is. He can't be with us while we're sinning, but he can be with us in our suffering. And so the ideal that he's not with Job.
And how do we know that he wasn't answering Job's prayers? Because doesn't God answer prayers in different ways?
Mm-hmm.
And at different times?
Yeah.
So
sometimes he says, shh.
yeah, so it's kind of presumptuous, isn't it, to Bildad to just assume that God's not answering his prayers.
Because this was the philosophy
But of the day,
of
yeah.
the day.
Yeah, and so we have the Bible in its entirety, so we know Bildad was wrong in his assertions of some things here. Then again, verses 9 and 10, Bildad wasn't necessarily wrong, was he? Life is short. That's true. We've already talked about that. Again, verse 13, what does verse 13 say? So are the paths of all who forget God, and the hope of the hypocrite shall perish. Isn't that a true statement? Yeah. People that go away from God are like plants that'll wither away, they'll die. But was he wrong in saying the same thing of Job? That Job was one of those kinds of people? I mean,
he was making an assumption of Job that he shouldn't have.
So there's a good life lesson for us, right? Be careful of assumptions. What in the world is a hypocrite?
Somebody who says or
Professes to believe, and yet their actions show that they don't.
Okay.
As I say, not as I do. They
Okay.
don't practice what they preach.
Don't practice what they preach. Jody, what did you say? An actor. So,
That's really
so from the Greek, and I know the book of Job's not written in the Greek, but the word hypocrite in the New Testament is the idea of a play actor. So it's a person that's on stage and they act one way, but off stage they're completely different, right? So you think about, you watch a TV show, we watch some shows, and the people will speak with like, let's just say a Middle Eastern accent. And then you watch them offset, I'm talking about The Chosen, you watch them offset, and then they're talking with an Australian accent. And it's like, whoa, so they're acting. And so that's the idea of a hypocrite. Now, can a person know if a person is being a hypocrite? Can you know?
Yeah, you can kind of tell.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
evidence usually.
If you know them, if you see it. All right. I mean, doesn't Jesus say that you could know a tree by its fruit? Okay.
There's evidence of it.
So it doesn't seem like there's any evidence of Job being a hypocrite. So, in fact, Job's friends traveled in from a great distance. They left behind their livelihoods and their life to come travel in. So I'm not sure. So I don't know what Bildad's thinking, but harsh words, man. Even if a person is, you could handle it, you could say it in a different way, I guess. That's what I'm saying. All right. Yeah, I just.
Just stay quiet.
Yeah,
It's so good. So good.
And but I'm going to tell you, just by the time I got through the second verse of this chapter, I was shaking my head at Bildad. I was like, man, what are you thinking? All right, but verses 20 and 22, while God may not reject the blameless, he does allow us to be tested, doesn't he? And part of the reason for that is because we live in a fallen world. We live in a sinful world. And so that's, people will go, well, why do bad things happen? Because the world is bad. Sometimes we're punished for our own mistakes, for our own choices. Sometimes we suffer the consequences of other people's dumb actions. Drunken driver gets in a car and drives and hits and kills somebody. That innocent family or person, they're suffering because somebody else made some bad choices.
And yet we as Christians still have a tendency to use that statements like, why is this happening to me?
Because the world's bad. And why?
That's, I did a lesson a while back on changing the questions. We asked the wrong questions about it.
So why does God allow us to suffer? Because if everything was perfect here in this world, we would never want to leave and go to a better place.
Right.
We'd have it all here.
And we would need him.
So it's causing us to remember this is not our permanent home, and we're longing to go to some place that's much better
Because
than
God
this.
is not a respecter of persons. If I climb up a tree and I fall and I hit every branch on my way down, God is not going to stop me from hitting the branches.
It's called gravity, right? It's a law that he put in the
Like when you climb the tree, what do you want me to do? You knew there was the thing where you could
Just
fall.
like me jumping out in front of a semi driving 70 miles an hour. Am I going to think that God is going to, God's automatically going to save me?
So going back to your tree analogy, I was thinking that would hurt, right?
Yeah.
And so one of my favorite YouTubers, anyway, he makes T-shirts that says "Stupid should hurt," and so you're going to climb a tree and you're going to do something silly and you get hurt. There's,
Well, it's like you talked about, if it was all good, we wouldn't want to leave. And I think of God. I mean, he makes these laws for when they had waste, when they're bodily waste, and what they needed to do with it, okay? He could have, because he has the power to, make it to where we don't have bodily waste.
Yeah, he could have.
Okay? But you needed to get the toxins out of your body, the bad things out of your body, so he made a way for that to happen. And then he also made a way for you to stay healthy by putting those things away from you. So
that, you know what that is? That's God's love. That some people would be like, "Ooh, a loving God would just cause us to not ever poop." I'll just say it.
I'm going to make these
poop, right?
processes
And
so that you can stay healthy.
And then he gives instruction
Yes.
on how you can stay healthy. Yeah.
So he, just like that, that's what it is for us on earth. He makes these situations and lets them happen so that we want to be in heaven and that we remove the toxins and start working towards a healthier life so we can be with Him.
That's why Paul said, I was circumcised the 8th day, because there was a reason behind it. God
There
put
was.
a law that
Yep.
worked. The blood doesn't coagulate properly until the 8th day.
Well, that's
And at the
why-
8th day, it's
That's why he gives instruction on how to make soap.
That's
That's
right.
why he gives instructions about how you deal with communicable diseases and all on and on.
Loving instructions, like, he shouldn't have to tell us why. We should just go, oh, God said, let's just do it. But we do. We go, oh, God said, well, why did he say that?
Because he loves
Because
us. He loves us. That's really what it goes back to.
He told you
Yeah.
to abstain from sexual immorality.
There's
Why?
reasons for
Because
that.
he loves you.
Yeah. Yep. All right, very good. Thank you guys very much. That was an enjoyable class. I really enjoyed that one question.
The triplet,
Yeah, which one? There was a couple of tricky ones. Or the nothing grows. Yeah, I like that. All right, so I think we're gonna call it a night. I put them over here. Before I hand these out, again, it's double-sided. Thank you, John. So I should put like Brian's side and then John's side. I'll start naming it that. Anyway, you might see question number 4. I was mentioning before class I'm feeling a little out of it. I think it's because of my changes of eating have gone back to the good way, and so now, anyway, my body's changing over. So I got these questions done yesterday because I'm typing them up. So if they're goofy, it's because I'm goofy. But anyway, I miswrote one of the words, and so all through here you'll see. If you can't read that, it's my writing. It's the word beg, not be. Anyway, it'll make more sense when you look at it. So. Oh, I didn't correct it for the online. If you print it off from the online link, I'm sorry, it is what it is. I'm not going to go back there and fix that. All right, I think Dad's going to close us up with the word of prayer, and then we'll hand these out.
Lord in heaven, we're so thankful for this wonderful gathering tonight. Thankful, Father, for the great lesson we just heard. Just bring it in. Father, continue to bless us and help us to continue to study the book of Job. He's a great man of yours. And we're just thankful, Father, for everything that you've done for us. Continue to bless us now. Bless all the sick of our number. Not able to be with us. And let them all be back. Service this Sunday morning. Go with all of us now, Father, throughout this night. And these be blessings we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. All right. And if you're online and you're watching, he said amen. So that means prayer's over. I don't know if you could hear him or not. I was going to tell you, speak loud.
He said, let it be so.
He did.
Loud enough?
No.
I don't know. You could go back and review it. Good night, everybody. Good night, YouTube world. Yeah. Bye, everybody out there in the live viewing audience. Let it be so.